Yes, hello and welcome to the Wildcard Rewind. Week 13 is done and dusted. We are nearly at where the playoffs start, and it's getting exciting.
I just wanna rewind to when we were young at heart. Back to all those good times. Take me back to the start.
Oh, sun's out, guns out, baby. The
Woo-hoo!
are back in town. It is the best two from the Wildcard Rewind crew. It is me. I'm back. It is Monday. I am joined by the amazing Lewis. How are you doing, mate?
I am fantastic. I might have spiked my mic immediately in the recording. I also don't know, that might have been the first time that any of us have ever done the intro without saying, let's get into it at the end, just because that's what it says on the show sheet. But I like the way that you did it. It was more exciting.
Yeah, like something you've got to mix it up. You've got to mix it up sometimes, and I'm all for it, but it's just the two of us tonight. Mum has decided she's, still doesn't want to come back and chat to us. Unfortunately, she has returned from the US and she's now unwell. So we hope you get better soon, Hannah, and we hope to have you back next week. But as it stands, she hasn't made any picks for next week. And Mags is not here to make any picks for her. So as it stands, we're making picks for her. So she might not be back next week because it's going to be an embarrassment and she's going to end up with 3 points. But hey ho, we'll see if she messages us back. But let's get straight into next week. And first of all, like we always do, we will talk about buys, or what can only be described as buy-pocalypse, because we have 6 teams on buy next week, which is, I'm not gonna lie, it's really shit. Okay, it's really shit because you spend all this time getting to the playoffs, and some leagues may start their playoffs in week 14, some start in week 15. I know a lot of charity leagues are in their playoffs and stuff like this. We might have a little chat about that later, but to see the Ravens, the Broncos, the Texans, the Colts, the Patriots, and the Commanders go on bye in week 14, if you are a team that needs one more win to get into that playoff spot, or you're battling, it seems like a really, really shit time to have 6 teams on bye. But yeah, we've got them teams on bye, so fingers crossed people can sort of scrape through week 14 with a bit of a win. But let's have a quick chat about the big news of this week, and it seems like there's only one place we can start with this. One of the best players in the NFL has gone down injured.
Again,
it looks like he's going to miss the rest of the season, and it's such a big loss for the NFL. And that is Taysom Hill has hurt his knee, and he's. Sorry, I'll stick to the show sheet. No, it's not Taysom Hill. CMC has gone down injured again. They've not officially said that it's a season-ending injury, but it wasn't. It was a non-contact one, and that to me is always, that screams really bad news. If it's a non-contact injury, it never seems really good. Lewis, first of all, I want to sort of say, so CMC's out for the season. Do you revert back to that Jordan Mason sort of play where you're going to put him in, or are the 49ers a bit of a mess at the moment? And there's a lot of injuries and a lot of things going on there. They don't seem to be that competitive team. Do you maybe veer to other players? Like, is there other running backs that you'd sort of go, oh, do you know what? I'd rather play him in a week than maybe sort of going back to that Jordan Mason train and trying to ride that again?
no, so I think it's a really interesting one, because now is the time of year where teams that aren't in the mix. And weirdly, the 49ers still are in the mix just because the NFC West is an absolute hellhole. But let's be honest, the 49ers aren't winning the division. It's very unlikely. Now is the time that teams will start to shut down players. You'll get to see like these little niggling injuries and go, oh, never mind, they're on IR for the rest of the year. Like we saw it happen with Dexter Lawrence, with the Giants. We've seen it happen elsewhere across the league. The thing with Jordan Mason is that they will be thinking that CMC will be back ready for next year. And so Jordan Mason is expendable. I'm very interested in Isaac Garendo as well. I think he's a really interesting player. But when you look at the workload after CMC went down, Isaac Garendo 4 carries, Jordan Mason 13. Like Isaac Garendo actually outscored him for fantasy because he got a touchdown, which is interesting. It wasn't like goal line work. It was just ripping out a long one from the 15-yard line. So I would think that Isaac Garendo will back up Jordan Mason. They'll probably mix it up a little bit more so than they did when they had CMC. But to be honest, I think this is the time of year that people like to talk about sort of league winning upsides. And I had this argument earlier today about Braylon Allen and being the starting running back or the backup running back on a bad offense doesn't give you league winning upside. Like you still have to be able to score points. So like, yeah, I am interested in Jordan Mason because of the volume, but this offense is really struggling. And it's not just the snow game last night. The offense is really not working. I think Brock Purdy will probably get shut down for the year. If they lose next week, maybe I check who they're playing. Oh, they're playing the Bears. So yeah, there's a decent chance they can pull that one out. But I think if they did lose in week 14, they'd probably shut Brock Purdy down for the year. Ayuk's already out for the year. Like Debo's really not looking like himself. So I am interested in Jordan Mason, but like if he's on waivers, fine. I don't think I'd be, looking to make a big trade to acquire Jordan Mason for a second round pick for the end of the season, because I don't think he actually has that upside because the offense isn't really working.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the numbers here, and obviously in that division you've got Seattle 7-5, Arizona 6-6, Los Angeles 6-6, and San Francisco 5-7. And I'm kind of sort of agreeing with you here. The Seahawks play Arizona next week, and the Rams play the Bills. Now that's a tough one for the Rams, but ultimately, I could kind of see, and I know I'm a Cardinals fan, but I can kind of see the Seahawks winning that. I think the Cardinals have looked good at times, but they've looked an absolute shit show at other times. And, I think we're a step forward from where we were last year, but we're not where we want to be. I don't think we're a team that needs to be challenging for the divisional, the division title and everything like that, and pushing towards the playoffs and stuff. I don't think we're quite there yet. Happy to let Seattle go and do that, but I kind of agree with you here. I think you will start to see if San Francisco lose to the Bears and Seattle win, that'll put Seattle on 8-5 and San Francisco on 5-8. And I kind of think it's a big uphill climb for them there. Yeah. Other what we're talking about, are there any other running backs that you kind of would? So if you're in a position now, say you're in a position where you've waited for CMC to come back, you've struggled along, you've probably got a chance at making the playoffs. Are there any running backs that you kind of go, oh, do you know what? I'd like him to be in my team going towards the playoffs. His workload could go up more, or he's somebody that recently you're sort of like, oh yeah, I kind of like the look of him. Is there anyone that you like in that sense instead of Jordan Mason, obviously?
I actually did a segment on a video earlier today about high upside handcuffs. So basically this is looking towards the playoffs, and this is looking towards running backs that are one injury away from stardom. And a lot of these are rookies, and they're all under 50% rostered in 1 QB leagues on Sleeper. And these are people who truly, I believe, they're playing in good to great offenses, or offenses with that potential, or offenses that like to feature one running back. And these are all players that I think potentially could have league winning upside. So glad that you asked, because it's actually something I prepared a graphic on earlier today. The 5 players that I've got Trey Benson. He's probably the person I'm least interested in out of the 5, because I think even if James Conner did go down, Emery DeMarcado would still see the third down work. Blake Corum was very interesting yesterday. Blake Corum got not the first series, but the Rams didn't run on the first series. Blake Corum got the first 5 carries and looked fantastic. And then Kyren Williams saw the rest of the workload the rest of the way. But I think there's definitely, if Kyren Williams went down, Blake Corum's probably an RB1 the rest of the way. He's 21% rostered at the time of asking on Sleeper. Tyler Algier, again, like Bijan Robinson, absolute star, but they do like Tyler Algier as well. And that offense can move the ball on the ground. Ray Davis is someone that Ray Davis potentially a priority here. Like he needs to be rostered, and he really isn't in so many leagues. He is the clear RB2. If James Cook went down, I think he'd be an absolute star again on a great offense. The other one that I've got is Jalen Wright. I'm less keen on this. He only saw one carry yesterday for the Dolphins. I thought he was the clear RB2. I thought he'd overtaken Mostert, but he hasn't. But of that list, I think definitely Blake Corum and Ray Davis are one injury away from being full fantasy stars.
Yeah, Blake Corum was the one that I was sort of leaning towards and trying to sort of get you to talk about without necessarily saying his name. So, I know yesterday you put up a thing on Twitter saying that he got the first carries, and I know Mags mentioned last week that it could be one of them weeks where you see Blake Corum and everything like this. And just looking at this, he had his highest snap count yesterday, which was he played 32% of snaps. He equaled his highest workload at 8 rushing attempts. He got a career high 42 yards, averaging 5.25 yards per carry and stuff like that, which, it's I know it doesn't sound like big numbers, but to me, it's kind of like a big step forward for them. And we know what Sean McVay's like. Next week, he could completely just use Blake Corum for the whole game and say Kyron Williams is done, but at the same time,
I'll be honest with you. Sorry, I'll be honest with you. That's what I thought was happening yesterday, because Kyron, I've tweeted about this. Like Kyron has a fumbling issue. Kyron Williams is a good running back. He's not a great running back. Like I don't know if you can tell me anything that he is elite at aside from just like a nose for the end zone and good vision and timing. I thought we were seeing the same thing we saw from Cam Akers to Darrell Henderson. We even saw from Todd Gurley to CJ Anderson. Like, this is something that Sean McVay does. And I thought that's what we were seeing when Blake Corum took that first full series and the first 5 carries and got, I think it was 3 first downs on that first full series of runs. I thought that was it. I was like, oh, okay, Blake Corum's the bell cow now and Kyron Williams is the backup. Okay. And then that was kind of he took 5 carries on his first series and then only 3 more the rest of the way. So obviously it wasn't that. I'm very intrigued to know what went in Sean McVay's mind to be like, this kid is running the absolute hell out of the football. Bench him. Not interested. No more for him. But yeah, I thought that's what was happening yesterday.
But is it also Sean McVay trying to see what he's got? And I know they do this. They will at some point see what they've got. And, you don't really want to wait till week 18 because week 18, I don't know who you're playing in week 18, but you may be playing somebody that's already in the playoffs and you're playing a practice squad, and it's no good looking, at some point he needs to find out if he's got himself a good running back there. He doesn't need to be looking for one in the draft next year or something like that, and it may be that, but it may be, like you said, it may be one of them where this is a turning point. And, I was trying to look at Blake Corum's schedule, and it's pretty green for him. He's got Buffalo, which apparently against the run, they're not very good.
No,
then they got San Francisco. They've got the Jets week 16, who are pretty good at stopping the run. But then, you got Arizona, who are not great at stopping the run. So, he's got 3 green games there for me. And, like you said, he's one injury away from being something that could be somebody that we actually say is a league winner. So, I don't know. Going back to what we were talking about with Jordan Mason, I don't know. I'm struggling a bit with the 49ers at the moment, and they just don't seem to be clicking the way we know the 49ers can. I know trying to take the snow out of the equation yesterday, it didn't seem to phase the Bills. They still put 35 points on the board, didn't bother them. But the 49ers, 10 points. What did they do the week before? Was it 10 points against the Green Bay Packers as well? And this is a team that we actually call a high-powered offense. They scored genuinely 10 points against the Bills, and then the week before they scored 10 points against the Packers, and I think they were on bye the week before, were they? No, they scored 17 points against the Seahawks, So you just sort of, I'm just a little bit worried about the 49ers at the moment in a sense of, I understand that Jordan Mason is the next guy up, but I'm just not confident in that team scoring big points, and the Bears, they're not the best team, but they're decent on defense, and I don't know. You may hear something a bit wild later. But we'll save that for later. But let's, we spent quite a lot talking about CMC. Let's have a quick chat about Taysom Hill. He's got a season-ending injury. Now I know a lot of people have ridden that train of putting Taysom Hill in the tight end spot, and he gets the QB snap sometimes, and he gets tight end snaps, and he catches touchdowns, and he rushes touchdowns, and does whatever. Now, I know what your answer is going to be, but I'll ask it anyway. Do you want another tight end in that Saints team, or are you fully like, I do not want any shit from that team now?
Yeah, I think you know what the answer is here. Like, Taysom Hill might be the most irreplaceable player in the NFL, just because there's not really anyone else that can do the things that he does. Like, plays a quarterback, plays running back, plays tight end, plays wide receiver, returns kickoffs, is on punt returns, is a gunner on punts. Like, Taysom Hill, I think he might be the personal punt protector on punts as well. Like, there is no one. Like, he doesn't play. Like, maybe they could give him some snaps as an edge rusher as well. Like, he is genuinely irreplaceable in the things that he can do. It's such a shame because he was, Taysom Hill has kind of been a bit of a laughing stock. That's been this weird guy that you're like, play him as your tight end and he might get you no points or he might get you 30. Like, we just don't really know. And people are finally starting to come around to being like, hey, this guy has a legitimate skill set. And like, yeah, he had one explosion, but like, he's a weekly starter at tight end. Yeah, he's boom bust, but like, you can start him week in, week out. He's actually, when he comes back from the injury, he'll be 35. So I don't think he's that long for this league. But the answer to the question is no. On the Saints, I'll start MVS if I'm desperate, like fully desperate. But it's just Alvin Kamara, I think, will touch the ball 30 times.
Yeah. Quick question. How many receiving touchdowns has Taysom Hill got this year?
I think it's 2. How many? 0. Oh, that's a surprise.
0. How many rushing touchdowns do you think Taysom Hill's got this year?
6.
6. On the
Hooray!
money. 6 rushing touchdowns. That's more than some running backs, okay? He has more rushing touchdowns. And yeah, I love Taysom Hill. I hope that he is back next year because I just think he's super fun. And I just love to see people go, I won't start him this week because it's Taysom Hill and he scores 0 points, puts him on the bench, and the next week scores 45 and would have won any game that anyone was in.
If we want to talk about fun players with weird stat lines, though, while we're on the subject, do you know who just rocketed themselves to joint 4th in receiving touchdowns in the NFL?
No, go on. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine.
Nick Westbrook-Ikhine with 8 touchdowns. So he has as many as George Kittle. Only one less than Amon-Ra St. Brown and Terry McLaurin, then Chase is in first. But it means that he has more than, well, I'm not going to run through the list of players. Everyone else, every other wide receiver that you think is a great red zone threat. Mike Evans, Justin Jefferson, like AJ Brown, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, like absolutely everyone he is beating out currently. It's genuinely insane. I can't understand what's going on with him, but he is 4th in the league in receiving touchdowns, and seemingly you can start him every week because seemingly he just scores a touchdown every single week.
I'm trying to find where he is on the list of overall this season wide receivers, but I can't seem to find him. I don't know if I'm scrolling past him.
I think he's wide receiver 27. I was looking this up earlier. Oh, Aggie, go away.
No,
that was a lot of dead air. Sorry, that was a lot of dead air, but the cat stood on my So my laptop.
Sorry,
On my laptop.
sorry. He's wide receiver 52 in PPR points.
Oh, really? That surprises
Yeah.
me. I thought it was higher.
But you've got to remember Nick Westbrook-Akini, yeah. Where is he? He's gone, yeah. He had 0 week 1, 0 week 2, 0 week 3, 0 week 4 bye week. So bearing in mind for the first 5 weeks he didn't catch a pass. And let's have a look what he is from week 6 to now. So week 6 to now, Nick Westbrook-Akini is wide receiver 13.
Bloody hell.
That is just insane. And people around him are Cooper Kupp at 12, Justin Jefferson at 11, George Pickens at 14, Puka at 15, Keenan Allen, Drake London. They're the wide receivers around him.
That's genuinely insane.
That's madness.
Do you want to know how many times he's caught more than 3 passes?
Go for it. Twice.
Once. He finished as a wide receiver 7 this week. He caught 3 passes. In week 11, he finished as a wide receiver 9. He caught 2 passes. He was the wide receiver 9 in week 11. He had 6 targets, 2 receptions, 117 yards and a touchdown.
That's amazing. I love him.
He's the weirdest player in the NFL. Do you know what the weirdest thing is about him? Let's just talk about him for the next 40 minutes.
Let's do it.
Nick Westbrook-Akini, right? So he has the longest touchdown in the NFL this season. He had a 98-yard receiving touchdown. All he does is score deep touchdowns. Nick Westbrook-Akini isn't that fast. He's not that fast. He's not that strong. He's not a particularly good route runner. If he was, he'd be, we'd know his name. He'd be doing more in the NFL. He just has this weird knack to score a long touchdown out of nowhere. I don't know if it's like they just know how to like scheme him up, or if they're like other teams are like, don't have to worry about that guy. We'll put our rubbish corner on him. And that's just the same thing over and over again. I don't think I've ever seen a Nick Westbrook-Akini highlight where he hasn't scored a touchdown. I don't think I've ever seen him do anything but score a touchdown.
Yeah, the only game he hasn't scored a touchdown since week 6 was against the Chargers in week 10. Since then, he scored a touchdown every game.
And that is the game that he has had his second most receptions on the season.
Yeah, that's crazy.
This is the sort of season, and I know he's only the wide receiver 50 something, like you said. This is the sort of season, do you remember Travis Fulgham a few years ago? That suddenly this UDFA suddenly exploded out of nowhere for 6 games and was the wide receiver 4 on the Eagles. And then the next game wasn't great and then was cut 2 weeks later. And then that was it. He was done. We never saw him in the NFL ever again. I think this is the sort of season that in a few years we'll be on this podcast being fucking hell, do you remember when Nick Westbrook-Akini
guy? Who was that guy that just kept torching everyone for touchdowns? What was his name? Nick something, But I also think he's one of these players that if he keeps going like this the rest of the season, scoring loads of touchdowns and everything like this, he's going to be massively overdrafted next year. And everyone's going to go, oh, I want Nick Westbrook-Akini. He scores loads of touchdowns and everything. And next year we could have this conversation and he scores 1 touchdown all year. And I love it. I love it. I don't know if you've just seen the message from Hannah in our group, but she's given us her picks.
Oh,
not going to spoil anything, but this name may come back up in a little bit. But enough about the legend that is Nick Westbrook-Akini. Let's get on to what we learned. So this is our regular feature where we rewind on the week before to talk about what we learned. What did we learn from week 13 of the 2024 season that will help us be better next season or next week even? Do you want to take this one or shall I?
I'll go first. I think we've reached the point in the season where the elite has separated itself from the good. And basically, I think there are 3 elite offenses in the NFL. And I think that is the Bills. I think that is the Lions. And I think that is the Eagles at this point in time. I think the Bucks are potentially up there as well. I don't think the Chiefs are there. I don't think the Vikings are there. The Ravens potentially up there as well. But what'd you say?
I was going to say, I think there's a lot of teams that are good and on their day have a good game, like the teams that you're naming now, the Ravens, the Bucks, these sort of teams, the Vikings, just about the Vikings. Sam Darnold, start passing the ball to Justin Jefferson, okay? You have the best wide receiver in the NFL. Give him the ball, okay? Sorry, I just
It's so strange, isn't it?
Okay, the amount of times I have him in bets on the weekend, and I bet on Justin Jefferson to score a touchdown, and he's not scoring a touchdown. I'm going to stop putting him in there. Okay, stop putting him. In.
Before I finish off this, do we want to tell the listeners that we made some money at the weekend?
No, because we can't talk about it because there's the secret Sunday touchdown club.
We didn't make any money at the weekend. We've not done anything. So my thing that I learned this week is that basically I think that the elite offenses have really separated themselves. I think that you saw that this week, and I think basically the ceiling elsewhere is so much lower than those offenses. So the main thing for me is that I just wouldn't expect to see that huge ceiling aside from the occasional blowout game or game that explodes like Steelers Bengals. But aside from that, like there were only 2 teams that scored more than 30 points this week. Oh, sorry, there were 3 teams that scored more than 30 points this week outside of the Steelers-Bengals game. Like, scoring was generally quite low, and it was quite low across the board from a fantasy perspective. Basically, I think those are the elite offenses, and I think those are the ones that we need to target going forwards. And, like, almost as well, they're the ones that you can target people against because we know that those offenses are going to score. And so we know that the other team is going to be chasing. I will quite often... The Lions aren't great against the pass, and they are the best offense in the NFL. I don't think that's up for debate at this point in time. I'll quite often target people against the Lions because I think, well, there's going to be passing volume there because you're not going to be able to keep up with this team. We saw that this week with the Bears. Like, Keenan Allen on the week was the wide receiver 2. DJ Moore on the week was the wide receiver 6. Like, you target the elite offenses, but also target the teams that they're playing.
Oh, I love it. 100%. And I think that ties in with what you were saying last week about like garbage time and stuff like that. You sort of pick these teams and, they can be doing shit and then garbage time and they're chasing and everything like this. And it is a big part to play. What I've gone for this week is weather is so important at this time of year. Okay. And we've seen that now. I know what you're saying about the Bills being an elite team. And, they can sort of overcome these things. I think Josh Allen was the first person ever to rush, pass, and catch a touchdown. The first quarterback to ever do it, which is quite impressive, to be fair. But
and those last two are the same touchdown as well. He passed. Well, I think I'm right in saying did he only pass for 1 touchdown? No, he passed for 2 touchdowns.
2. One was to himself, though.
Yeah, so he passed the one. He threw one to Matt Collins as well. Okay, but yeah, like one of the touchdowns that he completed that he threw was the same one that he caught.
Yeah, which is amazing. Absolutely love that. But I know they overcome it. But to me, weather is so important now. We will see different weather fronts hitting different places, and it will get rainy. It will be snowy. It will be everything like this. And I think weather is such, it can change a way a team play. You could get a pass-heavy team who go to a rainy game and all of a sudden they're rushing it a lot more and sort of just sort of like keeping an eye on things like that. So I am going to give a shout out to our good friend Matt at Matt FF Dynasty, or our favorite weatherman. He does put up a thread every week sort of saying what weather fronts are going to be hitting places, where he's targeting people and stuff like that. And I just think that's really valuable at this time of year because we are seeing these snow games and stuff. I think Matt put up about the snow game before I'd even seen any sort of like pictures of it, and it was, so I just think this time of year, it's something that you need to be checking and you need to be adjusting things like that, especially if you're looking for an upside player. If you're looking for somebody, you're looking for a few points instead of going for that. Oh yeah, he's probably going to get me 6 in my flex. I could put somebody in and go, oh, it's going to be a a wet day, I'll go for a rusher. He could score me. He could do a lot of work in the rushing game, and all of a sudden he's gone. That 6 points have turned into 15. And all. It's searching for that upside play, and I just think that's something that really needs to be monitored this time of year.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. Like, one of the reasons that so many people follow Matt and so many people pay attention to that thread is because it makes a huge difference. Like, and especially this time of year, which I always find very funny that like the weather obviously gets worse as we get into the crunch time for the NFL. You generally like games get worse the later into the season that we get. I'd love one day to get a snow Super Bowl. I think that would be great. But they will only play them in a dome, which is very annoying.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's so important this time of year, so you have to pay attention to it. Like like when the snow seemed to be calming down a little bit, I had an argument with a couple of people saying that like I wasn't playing any 49ers. I mean, you basically couldn't start any receiving option. The person with the most yards was Juwan Jennings, who had 8.6 PPR points. Like you couldn't really start any receiver here. And I was saying to people like, if I can, I'm just going to bench everyone in this game aside from Josh Allen, James Cook, and CMC. Obviously, CMC didn't work out because of the injury, but the other two really did. Like Josh Allen and James Cook absolutely went off. You have to pay attention to these things. It's so important.
Yeah. And CMC, I don't want to quote Anna because she's not here, but the process was right. Why you didn't bench him was right. It was just unfortunately an injury, which you can't predict that. So you know what I mean. Trust the process, and the process was right. But yeah, let's move on to our main feature then. Each week we have 3 regular features: stud, scare, and wildcard. A stud is where you choose an under the radar player who's going to do really well. A scare is where you choose a top player that's going to let you down this week. And wildcard is where you just go a little bit mental and choose something a little bit out there and a little bit obscure. I've completely lost where I was. But yeah, we are doing a bit of a competition with these 3. We are I don't know if you've got the scores in front of you, Lewis. We'll probably each get a point this week, which means it's absolutely pointless again.
Which would be, so what would it be? 4 weeks in a row that had happened. So the current scores, and I want to talk about something that I spotted on that sheet as well, which is quite funny. So the current scores, Hannah has 12, I have 14, and you have 15. So it's really all to play for. That can flip with one bad week. I was going through it earlier to make sure that everything was in right. And entertainingly, your wild card in week 5, considering we're about to go into week 14, was the Jags lose again, Doug Peterson gets sacked. And Doug Peterson is still the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And we were saying that, and like in week 5, that was the sort of thing where quite often we'll bring these things up and the other people will be like, I don't know if that's bold enough to be accepted here. That didn't feel like a bold call in week 5. And we are 9 weeks later in the season and he is still the head coach of the Jaguars.
I don't know. I don't know how he's still there, to be honest.
No.
I don't know. He makes me angry. He makes me very angry. But yeah, so it is all still to play for. I feel like we're going to do the same again, and we're each going to get a point. But we'll see how we go. We will go to our stud of the week. Like I said, this is where we talk about an under the radar player who we think is going to smash this coming week. Last week, Lewis, you said Brian Thomas Jr. He finishes wide receiver 13 with 18.7 points. I said Xavier Worthy. Unfortunately, Xavier Worthy didn't have the best of weeks. He only scored 8 points less than Brian Thomas Jr., so that's like a touchdown, He was a touchdown away from being as good. But he finishes wide receiver 37. And Hannah/Mag said George Pickens, who had 16.4 points, 6 points more than Xavier Worthy, and finishes wide receiver 20. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to give myself a point. Although, I don't really think George Pickens is an under the radar kind of player, but I'm not going to get into that,
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting one because we all basically went for the same formula, which is, I mean, George Pickens is performing. He's the one out of them that definitely is like having the best season. But you and I went for deep threat wide receivers who need to connect on one, who are having, have some upside. Brian Thomas Jr. definitely had some upside, but then been really disappointing recently. And I mean, George Pickens caught a long touchdown. Brian Thomas Jr. caught a long touchdown, was also overthrown on 2 more long touchdowns. Xavier Worthy and Patrick Mahomes, I think he dropped a long touchdown. So like that's the difference between you taking this point and me and Hannah managing to escape it.
Yeah. Just for clarification, on the season, Brian Thomas Jr. is wide receiver 12, George Pickens is wide receiver 17, and Xavier Worthy is 44. That's an under the radar player.
Brian Thomas Jr. is the wide receiver 12 on the season.
Yep.
Bloody hell, I feel like he's been, I mean, so the reason that I went for him is because the last 4 weeks before this week are the wide receiver 27, 59, 75, and 30. So I'm stunned that he's still the wide receiver 12 on the season, but yeah, fair enough.
So, it's too late to bring in the rules now, we've done this all season. It's too late to throw technicalities out there, but I do feel like, I went for an under the radar player here, But yes, I got the point. He finished the lowest. Let's talk about this week. I will put Hannah's. Can you put Hannah's in manually from there? Because I've got them in a message, not on the show sheet. So I'll start with Hannah's. Yeah. Hannah has gone for Nick Westbrook-Ikhine himself, the legend that is. And we have spoke about him, so I'm not going to spend too long chatting about him. I love this pick. I think Nick Westbrook-Ikhine is awesome. He has been doing really well. Not so much on yardage; it's more the touchdown kind of work. But they play Jacksonville in week 14, so that I can see Hannah's thought process here. And again, he's kind of one touchdown away from finishing quite high. So I do really like that pick there. I can't argue with that. Lewis, who have you gone for?
I mean, I love the Nick Westbrook-Ikhine shout. He's one of the favorites of the show at this point. This show is really wrapping around the things that we were mentioning earlier, coming back later on in the show. So I mentioned that I'll quite often look to start wide receivers against the Lions, and they have allowed the 3rd most fantasy points per game to the wide receiver position. They're playing the Packers this week. So it is very difficult to try and predict who is going to score those points. It's Thursday night football. I did check that it wasn't Monday night. I do check these things now because I have messed up too many times on this. It's very hard to predict which Packers wide receiver is going to be the one that thrives. I've gone with Christian Watson. Christian Watson was the yardage leader last time out against the Dolphins. He's the deep threat outside wide receiver. Romeo Doubs is working his way through concussion protocol, but potentially could still miss time. Dontavian Wicks did have a season high snap share, but isn't hugely. When all of them are healthy, he's the one that misses out, right? Christian Watson starts on one side, Romeo Doubs on the other, and Jaden Reese is a slot only player. Christian Watson, again, he's a deep threat. He only really needs to connect with 1 or 2 passes to really return here. I think this is going to be a very high scoring game. This is one that I'm debating in the UK, staying up to watch on Thursday night, because I think this is going to be fantastic. So yeah, I've gone with Christian Watson.
I love that pick. And like you said, this is kind of like borderline professional podcasting where we talk about a topic and then later come back, and it's just, we're basically nailing this, Lewis. Okay. But yeah, I absolutely love that pick. And I think the process is there. And I think, I think if you can pick the right Green Bay Packers wide receiver, you've got a wide receiver one there. It's yeah, and I love it. I'm tempted to just change mine and go, I'll go Romeo Doubs. And it's like a 50-50 shout. We both, one of us will be right, But I've gone for Caleb Williams. Now, Caleb Williams is having a really good time at the moment. I think he was QB4 this week, and I think he's QB4 the week before. Just looking over the last 3 weeks, he's actually QB3. The only two that are better than him over the last 3 weeks are Jaden Daniels and Tua. But I think he's having a great season. A great part of the season. He's really sort of coming to his own there. And they're playing the 49ers. And I think the 49ers are just in a bit of a mess at the moment. They don't seem to be getting anything going. And I think they may be in for a tough time this week with the Bears. And I'm hoping that the Bears are actually starting to click as such. You know, that they fired, was it their offensive coordinator? They fired it a couple of weeks ago. And I think maybe the new offensive coordinator is starting to get his system and his way of doing things. So I'm hoping that this momentum continues. And you know, I think they were very unlucky to not beat the Lions or even take the Lions to overtime this week. It was poor time management and stuff like that let them down. But I think
that cost Matt Eberflus his job as well. Basically, I mean, he'd already lost his job. He'd cost himself his job across the course of the season. But like that poor time management decision is the nail in the coffin. That's the one that then gets him fired. Yeah,
I agree. So I've got for Caleb Williams. You know, I don't need him to beat I want the Bears to beat the 49ers, but I don't need him to beat the 49ers to have a good week. But yeah, let's get on to our scares of the week. This is where we talk about a hyped up player who we think could be disappointing for the week to come. I'll start with Mags. Mags said Xavier Worthy. He said, I'm going to go for Xavier Worthy because if I go for him, I'm probably going to get it wrong, which I did. But again, I would argue that Xavier Worthy is not a stud player who, you know, but he's not getting a point anyway, you know?
No.
But I feel like Mags should get a point here for making such. He's picked wide receiver 44 as a scare. You know, come on, Mags, do better.
Hey, I'll give it to him if we want to give it to him. I'm fine with that.
I'm happy to give it to him. Okay, you don't come on my show and insult me and then tell me that you're going, oh, I'm going to go for a scare this week. I'm going to, you know, that's like me walking at you and going, yeah, I think my scare this week's going to be Trey Benson. You know, he's running back 44 on the week. He's done nothing to prove that he's amazing. But no, you know, I went for Joe Burrow and you went for Bijan Robinson. You know, there's a bit of a difference there. So I feel like Hannah should get punished for a point here for Mags's awful pick. But yeah, he went for Xavier Worthy, wide receiver 37. As we said before, he got 10.4 points. I got a get out of jail free card here because I went for Joe Burrow. I know you went for the Steelers Bengals game. We'll talk about that in a minute. But Joe Burrow finished as the QB 10 with 20.3 points. But my get out of jail free card was the fact that you went for Bijan Robinson, who not as bad as what I've done in the past, but he finished as RB2 on the week with 25.5 points.
It's not great, to be honest. It's not a great performance.
No, it's not RB1, you know, but
so like Bijan Robinson is the dynasty RB1, and he finished as the RB2 on the week. It's pretty bad.
It's pretty awful, mate. You know, it is pretty bad. It is pretty bad. It's not as it's not as bad as coming on here and picking wide receiver 44 on the season as a scare, you know. But unfortunately, Lewis,
it is it is. If he had been like the RB 10 or 12, I would have made the argument that Mags picking a cowardly option we could have punished. But the fact he was the RB2, like, I'm not going to sit here and try and argue that I shouldn't get that point.
Mate, if he was RB10 and I picked QB10, Mags would have definitely got the point for Hannah. I feel like Mags should be punished with a point anyway, because I feel like, you know, he was calling my picks cop-outs, but yet that's a cop-out pick for me, you know? That's shame on you, Mags. Shame on you. But yeah, let's talk about this week. We'll start with Hannah's again. Hannah's scare for this week is Josh Jacobs. I've
That's
lost.
against the Lions.
I was trying.
So
I
the
was just trying to
Lions,
figure it out who they were playing. But yes, it is
yeah,
the
the
Lions.
Lions are good against the run and not great against the pass. So I assume that's the way that Hannah has gone. I presume this is also based around the fact that the Lions offense will score often and early, so the Packers will probably have to pass, meaning that Josh Jacobs isn't going to see too much work on the ground.
I love it. I love it. It's a brave pick, if I'm honest. A brave pick. But let's talk about yours. Go for it.
Do you want to know the saddest thing about my pick is that we've often taken the approach on the show of Hannah likes to pick Bengals for her scares because if they are bad, then she doesn't get a point on the show. And if they are good, then she's quite happy because the Bengals did pretty well. Now, the problem for Hannah this year has been that the Bengals players have been really good for fantasy and they keep losing games anyway. So she kind of gets a pretty terrible side of both worlds there. I was looking at, so I'll always start by looking at fancy points against and looking at the different positions that different defenses shut down. And I spotted a matchup with the Bills that I thought, wow, we're really doing wraparounds in this show because we covered Bills Rams earlier. I spotted the matchup with the Bills. The Bills are the fifth best team against the wide receiver position. Puka Nacua is really taking over as the clear wide receiver one in this offense. Out targeting Cooper Cup the last few weeks, having more yardage in the last few weeks, more targets per route run as well. Like obviously in the last week, the Rams only passed the ball like 21 times. But Cooper Cup was really disappointing. He really let your fancy teams down. I think Cooper Cup has lost a step, which I think is really sad to say because he's one of my favorite players of all time. But I think we're starting to see the decline. He's 31 now, so it's not a huge surprise. He's been very injured the last couple of seasons. So yeah, I've gone for Cooper Cup. I think the Bills' defense is good, and I think they'll be able to shut him down. I think it might mean that Puka Nacua explodes because they'll have to get it done elsewhere. But I've gone for Cooper Cup. And yeah, this wasn't me going, I'm going to pick Cooper Cup because if he does well, then that's great. And, this was genuinely, I think he's going to struggle this week.
I love it. It's the strategy's there, the thought process is there, and I can't criticize your pick. Would love to see you pick Puka Nacua at this point, but hey,
never. I will never pick Puka Nacua as my scare of the week.
Hell will freeze over before you pick Puka Nacua as a.
If I pick Puka Nacua as my scare of the week, send an ambulance to my house because something is wrong with me.
I've picked Marvin Harrison Jr. and Hannah's picked Jamar Chase, and both have worked out for us. So maybe it work out for you.
You guys don't love them as much as I love him.
Oh no, I love Marvin Harrison Jr. more than my kids.
I love Puka Nacua more than I love your kids, to be fair.
Well, that's amazing. But I've gone for Bijan Robinson.
Yeah.
I was looking and I was looking at this week and James Conner this week. They really sort of that Vikings defense is actually a lot better than we sort of give it credit for, and it does really stop the run game. James Conner, who's been having a decent season this year, finishes the RB25 this week with 8.1 points against the Vikings, and I just think that that Vikings team will shut down Bijan and make them sort of play it through the air a little bit, and I think he's in for a bit of a tough time this week. So if I was a betting man, which I am, I would be backing Bijan Robinson to score a touchdown and have over 100 yards this week because that's just the process that it is. But yeah, let's move on to our wild card of the week. This is where we each suggest something we think could happen in the week to come. The less likely, the better. Lewis, you said Giants, Cowboys would be less than 20 points. It felt like it was a less than 20 points kind of game. It was not great. And you also said, which was unfortunately wrong because they had 47 points.
Yeah, and it'd be quite a fun game, actually.
Do you think?
I quite enjoyed it, but I'm struggling here. I was home alone on Thanksgiving, so I was just quite happy to have some sport to watch, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And then you also went for Steelers Bengals over 60 points, which was very, very correct because that was an insane game.
Nearly 80, am I right?
Yeah, it was 44-30 something, wasn't it? So maybe over
Yeah.
80, to be honest. I think it was the
Yeah,
37-44, was it?
44-38, which obviously puts it at 82 points.
Yeah,
So I could have gone even bolder. Imagine if I said over 80 points.
Which, to be honest, when you think about it, the fact that Najee Harris finished as that's on Najee Harris finished as the running back 3. Russell Wilson was the QB 3. Nobody from there. Nobody in the wide receivers top few, and Pat Freiermuth was tight end 3s. So actually, when you look at it like that, the fact that there wasn't higher sort of scoring players in the top positions, it seems like it wasn't that much. Normally, when you see a game with over 80 points, there's the top players are made up of team, players from that team, like.
Yeah. I think the weirdest thing, so like Najee Harris saw so much work. But then it's really been spread around through everyone else on both sides of the ball. I think the weirdest thing for me is Jamar Chase not even eclipsing 100 yards. Did score a touchdown, so like did perform well on the week. Finished as I think I'm looking at half PPR, but he was wide receiver 9 in the league that I'm looking at. But I think you see that the Bengals score 38 points in an 80-point game, and you assume Jamar Chase has exploded again, but no, like relatively modest performance for him.
Loved his 50-yard big play at the end because I was sat there with my over-under sort of yards for each player, and all I needed was Jamar Chase, and he had 38 yards at the point, and I think I needed over 76. So I remember sending a message to one of my groups going, I just need Jamar Chase to get like 40 yards, and I'm in the money here. And then next minute he came up with sleeper going, Jamar Chase has made a big play of 50 yards. I was like, let's go. but yeah, so you got one right and one wrong. I said all home teams would win on Thanksgiving, which you all slated for was a shit call, but hey ho, I don't care. AJ Brown has over 100 receiving yards and a touchdown. Again, you and Mags criticized me for this pick, but he didn't do it. So the streak continues.
I think it was just Mags. I think Mags went on a big tangent of criticizing all of our picks at the end of last week's show.
Yeah. But I get it. You sort of go AJ Brown 100 yards against the Ravens, who are shit against the pass. You sort of get it. But when you look at AJ Brown's stats on the season, he's yet to have back-to-back weeks where he goes over 100 yards. And that was my thing. He hasn't done it, and he still hasn't done it. Mags is criticizing it, saying it was a cop-out pick, but actually he didn't do it, so it can't be that much of a cop-out pick. But I got one right and one wrong. And Mag said a team will be held to 0 this week, and that was wrong because nobody's been held to 0. And you might need to explain this one to me. Is he saying that a rookie would finish in the top 12 of each of the positions?
Yeah.
Okay. I checked. There's a rookie in the QBs, a rookie in the wide receiver, and a rookie in the tight ends, but not in the running backs.
Okay. Which was always going to be the difficult one to get. That was always going to be the toughest one.
Yeah. So unfortunately, Mags, you're wrong, and you cost Hannah the point there because you got both wrong. Sorry. That's
which
the way the cookie crumbles.
As per always, 1 point each. Pointless show. Nothing changes.
But yeah, let's get into our wildcard picks for this week. Hannah has gone mental. I think the USA Air has got to her, and I don't know, maybe she's unwell and she's high off medicine and cough syrup and stuff like that, but she's gone for the Panthers to beat the Eagles. Absolutely love this if it comes in, okay? Do you know what? I will praise her and bow down to her if she gets this right. And I know the Panthers were close to beating the Bucks this year, but it's the Eagles, man. You know,
That defense is absolutely on fire for the Eagles. Like, we pay attention to Saquon Barkley on the other side of the ball. That defense might be the best in the NFL right now.
But I love it. I love it. But this is what we want. We want these wild picks. But Hannah's gone for the Panthers to beat the Eagles and Tony Pollard to finish as a top 5 running back this week. Which again, I love that, and I hope both come in. But Lewis, let's talk about yours. What have you gone for? So Hannah said the Panthers will beat the Eagles, and you've said
I don't think they will. My wild card isn't. I think the Eagles beat the Panthers. But I've looked at. So again, I always look at fantasy points against. Obviously, we know the Panthers allow some of the most rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, and points to the running back position in the NFL. The Eagles have MVP candidate Saquon Barkley as their lead running back. I'd be very interested. I don't have it up in front of me, but I'd be very interested to see what his over/under rushing yards are in this game against, the best running back in the NFL against the worst rushing defense. But I think he rushes for over 200 yards. He has done it once already this season, which was against my Rams. That was fun. I'm glad I stayed up to watch that. And yeah, I think there's a good chance that this is just Saquon Barkley and nothing else. I don't think they'll need anything else. I've also said that I think the Jets take down the Dolphins. Now, if I'm honest with you, I can't remember why I said this. I think the Dolphins' offense is struggling. The Jets showed some signs of life against the Seahawks before Aaron Rodgers then threw it away. Aaron Rodgers is not just playing for his job on the Jets, although I think he's probably lost that already. He's playing for his future in the NFL because I think he still wants to play. He has come out and said, I'll be definitely be playing next year. I just don't know where. And I think this is exactly the sort of game that the Dolphins would just randomly lose in this rubbish season that they're having.
I love it. It's definitely out there. So my wild card. Now, I was going to go for something, but I've just realised that one of the games is Monday night.
Don't do that. That would be stupid, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So I was going to say that all 4 and 8 teams, there's 3 of them, are going to win this week. That's the New Orleans Saints beat the Giants, Chicago Bears beat the 49ers, and the Bengals beat the Cowboys. But I'll just say the other 2. So I think the Bears and the Saints both win, beating the Giants and the 49ers. And I'm going to go for something that Mag said a couple of weeks ago. And I think we will see 5, I'm going to go for the same number, 5 QBs score rushing touchdowns.
Cool.
So I'm going to go with that. I really liked it when he said that. And I was like, do you know what? I may even have a bet on it.
I think we should look that the NFL is now it's trending in one direction. In all of the games to have taken place since midnight last night, quarterbacks have had a receiving touchdown. That's 100% of games. I think you should say 5 quarterbacks will score a receiving touchdown.
Do you? Do you think that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
I tell you what, I will say that if you say that Puka Nacua is your scare of the week.
No, never.
But yeah, so I'm going for the Bears and the Saints win. Bears beat 49ers, Saints beat the Giants, and 5 QBs score rushing touchdowns. Now, bearing in mind, I want you all to acknowledge that this is not a cop-out pick because Lamar Jackson's on bye, Bo Nix is on bye, Anthony Richardson is on bye, and Jaden Daniels is on bye. Okay.
Yeah. So 4 of I think if you were to look, that might be the 4 top aside from Jalen Hurts. 4 of the top 5 quarterback rushing touchdown leaders.
Yep, 100%. So you've still got you've got Josh Allen, you've got Kyler Murray, you've got Jalen Hurts. They're the 3 that you'd probably back to potentially score a rushing touchdown. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts more than Kyler Murray, but yeah. I'm going for it. I'm going out there. It's my wild card pick. But
I love it.
That brings us to the end of the show, Lewis. And I've just completely lost where I was. Yep, great. That brings us to the end of the show. thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on X at Wildcard Rewind. Head on over to our YouTube channel, search for us at Fantasy Wildcard, and make sure you give us a like and subscribe. And hopefully we will be back as a 3 next Monday, and we will see you all there.